Hello, this is the Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me, so feedback is immensely important. Feel free to reach out to me, and the sources to do so will be provided for you. All right, so some of the audio platforms that I'm on Speaker, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Deezer, just to name a few. All right, so it's Friday, and this is the last installment of talking about aspects of fashion. Next week, I'm going to get on to language. So this week, I'm focusing in on Norway. Here we go. Okay, so my thoughts about Norway and the aspects, the contributions to culture. So many, and it's quite interesting with the aspects of how Norwegian culture is very influential and to pop, and the way popular culture and the way people look at, for the instance, Vikings, and the lore and depending on the different perspectives, but for the most part, the lore and the power, and specifically with the aspects of the cultivation that it brings with sea life, that so many mythological aspects of that, we have with the Viking ships and sailing and the innovation within just alone how it was designed to flourish for long periods of time. It was designed to be able to withstand different terrains of weather and the different aspects of water and so forth, and the pure aspects of exploration and the aspects of knowing how to travel and the contributions that Norwegian culture has brought into society. And then that comes with the aspects of the clothing too, for instance, sweaters particularly. And I said this before, and I'll reiterate this again. So it's quite interesting how the aspects of clothing evolves into fashion. So depending on the territory or terrain, quite naturally, mostly everything starts out with you're wearing things to suit the weather. You wouldn't wear a sweater and you live in Bolivia, for instance. One of those aspects of how clothing is sought after as a utilitarian source. And then when people start to get out of that, again, that mentality or survival mode that I must wear this in order for to just deal with the environment in which I'm living in. Now that I have more money or so forth, or now that I can relax or think about the aspects of what I want to wear, how I look, and my position and status, if that's a possibility. If not, what comes out. And that's quite interesting with the aspects of what is considered pageantry. Now, I've already talked about food, but I think this is a really good example to wrap everything up. For instance, the po' boy. Now, and there's so many other cuisines that fall into this category. So, for instance, po' boys were traditionally seen as something that was secondhand, that was something that lower class people would eat, or that it wasn't anything sought after as something that was, chic. But then when time goes on and people's palates start to change and their perceptions of food and cuisine start to change, then all of a sudden it becomes very popular, and then it to the point that where it becomes high cuisine in most parts of the U.S. and sometimes in the aspects globally. And then you can argue that a lot of times too, in the aspects of that too for other cuisines. So my whole point is, it's quite interesting how the aspects and the disposition too, when you translate that to clothing and fashion, works. Because for the most part, when you break everything down, it works the same. And then also, when I go on to next week, language sort of works the same, but it's more concrete into the aspects of what the cultural feel of what people think. So clothing is really, from my point of view, just a walking billboard about what is and what isn't valuable about certain cultures, or what is or isn't thought of about someone's personality. And so, whether we want to accept that or not, the way you look really counts. And so, how you dress, that goes with the territory. And so, that also goes with the aspects of the traditions in which they come from. Because a lot of times, especially in Norwegian cultures, there's a rich, very rich tapestry of interwoven symbolism in the clothing that they wear. And so again, that speaks volumes to the aspects of societies who hold on to traditions like that, because it says that no matter how much you evolve, it's always good to understand where you came from. And that's a lesson that can be learned a lot with the aspects of moving forward into, modern culture, especially in the times that we live in today. When you get in the aspects of, having the mentality that you shouldn't appreciate where you came from. See, when you get into that sort of mind frame, that starts to get you really, and pun intended, dazed and confused from the whole point and the idea of understanding the significance of it. Because if you appreciate where you came from, you appreciate the next and the next and the next as you move on and move forward. And that's something to think about. All right, with all this said, I'm going to get into the aspects of Norwegian fashion. Here we go. Now, of course, sources will be provided for you in this episode. All right, so Norwegian fashion history. So the fashion history of Norway is deeply intertwined with a geographical climate and national identity, evolving from practical, regional distinct garments to a celebratory symbol of cultural heritage. So the country, harsh winters necessitates durability. So functional clothing with wool being a staple due to Norway's long history of sheep farming and abundant natural resources. Early garments such as the steel doll sweater, forgive me for the pronunciation of that, the lust of originated in the year around the 18th and the 19th centuries. So they feature black and white patterns with prominent black stitches designed for warmth and practicality. All right, so the modern concept of the bundai, a traditional Norwegian folk costume, emerged in the 19th century as well. So traditional national romanticism is the reason for it. So again, as I mentioned, what the aspects of pride in which you come from. And it was quite interesting too with the aspects of romanticism, because of the whole painting movement that came about that too around the same time, when you have, picturesque, and then literary works too. You have picturesque scenery, and it gives the feeling of enchantment. And so the aspects of translating that into fashion, you get the aspects of enchantment in which your culture, and then the pride in which your land, how your land feels, and then how you look. All right, so a movement that was sought after and defined as a distinct Norwegian identity following the union with Sweden, which was from 1814 to 1905. While the term bundai broadly refers to traditional rural clothing from the 18th and 19th century, the narrower sense describes the modern folk costume developed in the earlier 20th century. So the idea of a single national costume was initially promoted but by the early 1900s, author and national activist Hilda Gorborg championed the development of regional bundais, leading to the diverse design scene today. So each representing the customs and tradition of specific areas. So over 500 locally specific bundai variations have since developed, with designs varying by region, such as the Nordland and Romsdal, the Rogaland, and the excuse me for the pronunciation of that, the Hardanger bundais. So the Hardanger bundai is in particular became a widely recognized symbol of Norwegian identity. So often it features a red bodice, a dark skirt, white apron with the Hardanger embroidery, and a beaded brinkolt inserted. So the style, sometimes considered Norwegian national costume, was popularized through the efforts of figures like Anna Persdutter Jordal, who opened a shop in Oda selling simplified versions to tourists. So the bundai tradition has been carried forward by enthusiasts and designers, with the modern interpretation incorporating elements of Viking heritage, Sami culture, and national pride. Beyond traditional wear, Norwegian fashion has also embraced innovation. By the 20th century, the country developed a strong textile industry. So with Oslo, and I have listeners from Oslo, thank you so much, was a major product hub, fueled by hydropower and traditional crafts. By the 1950s, specifically 1953, design of the Marius patterns based on the classic Luskov, and popularized by a film featuring a war hero, introduced bold colors reflecting the Norwegian flag, and remains a popular modern design. Contemporary Norwegian fashion continues to emphasize sustainability, quality, and functionality, with the growing movement favoring a long-lasting, eco-friendly pieces over fast fashion. So this blend, traditionally practiced and modern values, defines the enduring legacy of Norwegian fashion history. All right, so let's go in deeper. And this will wrap everything up. So, of course, the source will be provided. So, Norwegian fashion culture has produced timeless designs that have spread across the globe or have remained in local treasures. So, the country's demanding geographic demand, that is, requires sturdy clothing that can resist the harsh conditions. So, the Bundan dress, let's get into deeper about this. So, it says the meaning outfit or equipment in 19th century, it means, let me rephrase that again, sorry about that, let's start over. So what it is is a meaningful outfit or equipment. That's what the Bundan dress is. And it, again, as I was stating, it was produced in the 19th century by patriots adopting the item as the garb most symbolic of Norwegian identity. So by the 1900s, the idea of the bundai had expanded to include unique designs for every region. You might see a Norland bundai or a more Rom-style bundai or a Rogaland bundai, depending on where you travel. But the core feature of the bundai dress remains the same. A wool base with scarves, shawls, embroidery, and gold or silver jewelry. So since the 1900s, Norwegians have shifted away from using traditional garb as the best way I can describe this is to be extravagant or more exaggerating. That's the better word choice here. For formal wear to adorn it during key moments of Norwegian heritage. So the settle sweater. The wool Norwegian clothing style pieces are some of the earliest garments we have on record. I'm reading according to what the writer has said. So this is according from their point of view here. So the country's natural abundance makes it an ideal place to raise sheep and wool, and its unique properties make it exceptional at combating cold Scandinavian winters. So it is no surprise that the most famous traditional Norwegian sweater pattern originated from simple wool design in the province of Seattle. All right, so the Murrah sweaters. So in the 53, former fashion model Dahl designed a pattern based on the classic Luskov. So a local 1954 film, Trolley I Lord, featured a former war hero, Marcus Ericsson wearing one of Dale's designs. This picture created a knitting fever in Norway, and knowing the Luftwaffe to update its name to the Marcus pattern. Unlike the Citadel predecessor, the Marcus design featured bold colors red, white, and blue, symbolizing the Norwegian flag. So today, Norwegians still layer a woolen Marcus sweater on top to protect from the elements and to proudly display their nationality. All right, so wrap it up. So modern development. So modern Norwegian styles recognize wool cultures and practical significance. Norwegians have knitted for centuries, giving today's designers a deep history to draw upon. That is why the designers are so successful. And Norwegian rich culture, paired with improvisational distribution methods, means today, shoppers have wide access to designs and previously confined to specific regions. So designers by Dale of Norway are a perfect example of many of their patterns incorporating traditional features like the 8-petal silver rose. And to add on to this, the aspects of haute couture, being in the high range of fashion to Norwegian impact, Norwegian culture impacting that too. When you get in the aspects of Christian Dior and walking down the runways with the aspects of Norwegian fashion, that's quite impactful too. All right, so this reaches the end. And of course, feedback is immensely important. And those who have commented on YouTube, continue to do so. All right, I appreciate all you listeners out there. So tune in, turn up, and definitely take care. Bye-bye for now.